there is a quiet, dangerous deception hiding within the scrolls of the modern scholar. The world praises those who read the most, those who collect titles like trophies, and those who can quote the words of dead masters from memory. But the most formidable minds to ever walk the earth, the tacticians who see the hidden turning points in battle, the architects who build empires from dust, and the sages whose advice can alter the fate of a province, rarely achieved their clarity through a formal academy. They became formidable because, at a precise moment in their lives, they stopped waiting for a teacher to hand them truth and took total, unyielding responsibility for their own sight. They did not achieve this by gathering more scrolls or attending more lectures. They achieved it by looking at reality with a different kind of eye, boring into ideas far deeper than any school would ever dare demand. The ancient warriors of the mountain dojos had a name for such a person. They did not call them educated. They called them dangerous. They were dangerous not because they carried steel, but because they possessed a depth of understanding that shallow, credentialed thinkers could never pierce. They could not be manipulated by empty status. They could not be fooled by elegant appearances. They had looked beneath the surface and seen that the title of a warrior and the soul of a warrior are rarely the same thing. To build a mind like this requires an entirely different architecture of thought, a system of 4 inner laws designed to shatter the illusions of superficial learning. 2 seasons ago, deep within the rain-heavy forests of the eastern province, our UI had been studying the art of tactical geometry under the sharp gaze of Sudoku. Every morning as the mountain mist broke, Rui would arrive punctually at the wooden veranda, lay out his parchment, copy the ink-drawn battle formations Sudoku assigned, and memorize the historical maneuvers of the great campaigns. By every external measurement, RUI was the model apprentice, obedient, tireless, and meticulous. One afternoon, while the rain drummed against the cedar roof tiles, Sudoku stepped over the low threshold and stopped RUI mid-stroke. The old master pointed to a single line representing a standard defensive vanguard. "Draw this wall again," Sudoku commanded. Rui dipped his brush, slid the ink across the page cleanly and precisely, matching the master's original line with flawless symmetry. Sudoku looked down at the parchment and shook his head. "You have copied the ink. You have not understood the ground." Rui remained still, his brush hovering above the paper, entirely unsure of what the old man meant. The lines were identical. Sudoku sat upon the woven mat, his old eyes fixed on the young man. "Tell me what that line costs," the master said. "Not the length of the timber. Tell me what the valley feels like when 300 men are packed into its throat behind that wood. Tell me where the wind catches the smoke if the enemy burns the brush to the west. Tell me what a commander feels when that flank begins to buckle." Rui opened his mouth, but no words came. He had drawn that specific vanguard 1,000 times over the last 2 years, yet he realized he knew absolutely nothing about it. Sudoku was not angry. His face held only the cold weight of truth. "You have been devouring my scrolls," the master said softly, "but you have not been understanding them. These are entirely different acts. Until you learn the difference, every strategy you draw will be a shadow without steel. Go back to your quarters. Do not touch your ink tonight. Sit with one single defensive line. Spend the entire night with it. Do not replicate it. Grasp it." Rui returned to his small room, lighting a single tallow candle. He sat before the line for 5 hours. By the time the wick guttered into gray wax, he felt an unfamiliar weight in his chest. What the master had been offering him all this time was not a list of techniques to memorize. It was a severe, uncompromising way of relating to truth itself. This is where the 4 laws of the formidable mind begin. The failure that Rui encountered that evening is the oldest trap in the pursuit of skill. He was gathering knowledge without achieving Rikai, the absolute ownership of an idea. In the strict tradition of the mountain dojos, Rikai does not mean the ability to recall a concept or recognize it when someone else speaks it. It means to hold a principle so thoroughly in your grip that if every scroll in the province were burned to ash, you could rebuild the entire framework from nothing. It means you can view the concept from 7 different directions, see exactly where it breaks, and explain its core essence to a common rice farmer using only the vocabulary of the soil. Most men who seek to cultivate themselves today do so through raw, undisciplined consumption. They collect books, stack journals, and listen to the debates of passing merchants, believing that a mountain of paper equals a fortress of wisdom. The volume of their collection is impressive, but the foundation of their mind is sand. The passage of ink across your eyes does not alter the structure of your brain. If you cannot strip a principle of its elegant phrasing and defend it using only your own simple words, you do not own that principle. You are merely renting it from the author. True understanding requires a deliberate, painful friction. The mind must wrestle with the material, turning it over like a heavy stone, looking for the cracks. The shift from consumption to Rikai demands a relentless, stubborn slowness. It means instead of reading an entire volume by twilight, you spend an afternoon on a single page, breaking the logic down into its smallest components until each piece is transparent. You close the scroll, turn your face to the wall, and force yourself to map out the entire architecture of the thought from memory. If your mind stumbles, you return to the page not to reread, but to confront your own blindness. The dangerous thinker reads far less than the crowded scholars around him, but he possesses everything he touches. To put this into immediate practice, take the heaviest concept you're currently trying to learn. In your next quiet hour, cut your pace down to a crawl. Read 3 sentences, close your eyes, and write the core meaning on a wooden slate using no technical jargon. If you cannot explain it to an intelligent child, stand up, go back, and face the friction. The gap between what you recognize and what you actually understand is where true intellect is forged. 2 months after that rainy evening, a visible change had settled over Rui. He moved through the master's assignments with a strange, deliberate gravity. He no longer asked how many pages he needed to complete by dusk. Instead, he asked why a specific defensive line was anchored to that particular ridge, and how the geometry would shift if the scouts reported damp soil. Sudoku watched this transformation from the shadows of the courtyard. One morning, as Rui was cleaning his slate, the master approached. "What else are you tracking outside this room?" Sudoku inquired. Rui straightened his robe, listing his studies with an air of modest pride. He was tracking the history of the southern dynasties, the poetry of the early monks, and the medicinal properties of river roots. He believed, as most do, that a wide net makes a grand fisher. Sudoku's hand fell like iron onto Rui's shoulder. "Stop," the old man said. Rui looked up, confused. "Not forever," Sudoku clarified. "But for now, there is an immutable law of the blade. Ichigo Niharu, to enter completely through a single door. The path to becoming genuinely dangerous requires you to go to the absolute bottom of one valley before you dare survey the mountain range." The master turned his gaze toward the horizon. The man who goes truly deep into one single discipline learns something the scattered wanderer can never comprehend. He learns how knowledge itself is constructed. He learns how it feels to move from total blindness to absolute clarity within a territory that actively resists his presence. Once you possess that internal compass, you can navigate any new forest on Earth. But you cannot build that compass by dipping your toes into 20 shallow streams. Sudoku gestured toward the village below, where Jian, a young scholar known for carrying 3 heavy satchels of diverse scrolls, was walking. "Look at him," Sudoku muttered. "He has studied 20 things superficially. He has achieved only one true skill. He knows exactly how to remain shallow in 20 different ways. He has built an instrument that can only skim the surface." But that was only the surface of the problem. What Arui found next made the first lesson feel incomplete. The instinct to learn broadly is not entirely wrong. Breadth holds immense value, but the sequence must never be inverted. A wide range of knowledge built upon a deep, ironclad mastery of one single domain creates a formidable strategist. A wide range of knowledge built upon nothing creates a harmless gossip. The deep learner who later turns his eyes to other fields brings a lethal quality of attention to everything he touches. He knows instantly when he's looking at a mere appearance of truth because he remembers what the bedrock feels like. Choosing your single door is the most critical decision of your intellectual life. It cannot be a passing whim or a mild curiosity. It must be a domain heavy enough to hold your attention for years without revealing all its secrets, something that calls to the fundamental questions of your existence. Once you choose it, every other interest must become a distant second. Write down the 3 paths you are currently trying to walk. Ask yourself with total honesty, if I were to drop 2 of these and go to the absolute bottom of the remaining one over the next 2 winters, which one would fundamentally transform the way my mind functions? Choose that one door and guard it with a quiet, stubborn discipline. The world will tempt you with easy variety, but you must remain in the deep water. The broad view will come later, but the anchor must be cast first. 6 months into his focused study of tactical geometry, Rui came to Sudoku with a heavy spirit. "I can see the movements perfectly while I am sitting at your table," Arui admitted, looking down at his hands. "The lines are clear, the geometry feels solid. But when I return to my quarters and 3 suns pass, the clarity vanishes. The facts remain, but the underlying understanding has turned to smoke. The pieces no longer fit." Sudoku smiled faintly, reaching behind his low desk to lift a heavy, battered cedar box. He opened it, revealing dozens of hand-bound ink journals, their pages yellowed by smoke and age. They were records stretching back 30 years, not copies of ancient texts, but pages covered in Sudoku's own jagged handwriting, filled with personal doubts, sudden insights, and arguments with himself. "This is not a library of what I have been told," Sudoku said, turning a brittle page. "This is the graveyard of what I have come to think. These are entirely different things." He pointed to an entry written during his youth. "See here? I was entirely convinced that a cavalry charge could be broken by a staggered line in damp clay. I was completely wrong. But because I forced that wrongness out of my head and onto the parchment, it became a physical object. I could look at it months later, see the flaw in my own sight, and strike it down. The mind that thinks only within its own skull can never see its own errors. The skull is too dark. Writing forces your thoughts into the light, and the light always reveals the gaps." The old master's journals revealed a jarring truth that reframed everything Arui had assumed about memory. Taking notes is merely building a museum for another man's ideas. A true thinking document is a private battleground where your own mind attempts to stand on its own feet. When you force a vague, comfortable thought out through your fingers and onto a page, the illusion of your competence vanishes instantly. You will find yourself halfway through a sentence, only to realize that you do not actually know what you believe. That the beautiful clarity you felt while reading the Master's scroll was entirely borrowed from the Master's skill, evaporating the moment you were forced to generate it yourself. This is a brutal, humiliating experience, which is precisely why most scholars avoid it. They prefer the soft comfort of continuous reading because it allows them to feel intelligent without ever being tested. But in the warrior tradition, writing is not a record of thought. The writing is the act of thinking. Over months of daily practice, this private scroll becomes a living mirror. It shows you exactly where your logic is crippled, where your discipline is failing, and where your understanding has actually begun to take root. Start a private parchment. It is not for the eyes of the village, nor is it a place to show off your style. After every hours-long study session, sit quietly for 10 minutes and write down what you now think, what still confuses you, and where the logic feels brittle. Do not smooth over the rough edges. Write to discover your own ignorance. Return to these pages with every full moon. Read your old thoughts and aggressively correct them. That constant revision is the exact mechanism that sharpens the intellect into an edge sharp enough to cut through deception. 1 year into this severe regimen, RUI's grasp of strategy had reached a level that caused the younger apprentices to speak of him with quiet respect. Yet, on the morning of the first frost, Sadoku gave him an order that felt like an insult. "Leave the temple," the master said, handing RUI a small bundle of coarse clothes. "Go down to the river basin. Spend the next moon assisting the master builder who is constructing the timber pilings for the new bridge." Rui stared at the bundle, his pride stinging. "Master, I am a student of grand strategy and tactical geometry. I am learning how to defend provinces, not how to drag wet cedar through mountain mud." Sadoku's eyes went cold. "You have been understanding strategy as a monk in a clean room," the old man said. "You must now understand it as a man whose ignorance has immediate, physical consequences. You need to see whether your beautiful geometry can withstand the weight of rushing water and the stubbornness of unseasoned wood. Knowledge that never leaves the temple wall is a decorative toy. Yissen, knowledge through action, is the only thing that makes it real. Until your understanding moves from your head into your marrow and your split calluses, you know nothing." Rui's first 7 days at the river were an agonizing lesson in humility. The flawless geometric ratios he had calculated so elegantly on Sadoku's clean table became clumsy and useless when the mountain torrent rose 2 inches higher than expected, or when the timber supplier delivered warped pine instead of straight cedar. The theory remained perfect, but the reality was chaotic, muddy, and indifferent to his notebooks. His initial attempts to direct the laborers were awkward, his calculations failing to account for the shifting silt of the riverbed. But by the 4th week, the mud felt different beneath his feet. He stopped looking at the bridge as an abstract drawing. He began to feel the tension of the wood in his own lower back. He returned to Sadoku's temple before the next moon rose, carrying no new scrolls, but moving with the quiet, heavy presence of a man who had looked into the eyes of failure and adjusted his grip. Sadoku took one look at Rui's scarred hands and his calm, unblinking eyes. "Now," the master whispered, "you are beginning to understand strategy. Before, you merely remembered it." This is the exact cliff where the vast majority of self-taught men quietly perish. They accumulate decades of theoretical armor, yet they remain intellectually soft because their ideas have never been forced to strike iron. They can discuss philosophy with elegance. They can spot flaws in another man's argument at the tavern. But their knowledge remains entirely ornamental. It has never met the rough friction of the world, which is the only force capable of grinding away the useless fat of an idea. You can read every treatise ever composed on the art of leadership. You can memorize the psychology of human nature, and you can pass every examination the elders set before you. But until you stand in the storm of a real crisis, responsible for an outcome that matters, your knowledge is an illusion. Theoretical understanding is a shadow that vanishes the moment the room goes dark. Applied understanding becomes part of your bone structure. Yissen demands that you bring every concept you encounter into immediate contact with reality. If you study an ethical principle from the ancient texts, do not leave it in the scroll. Apply it to the hardest financial decision you face this very week. If you study the art of rhetoric, do not merely appreciate it. Speak to an audience that owes you nothing and watch where their eyes wander. The raw feedback of the world is the most efficient teacher in existence because it does not care about your feelings. It shows you precisely where your vision was flawed. And that brutal accuracy is worth more than a lifetime of comfortable reading. The dangerously self-educated man is recognized instantly not by the titles he claims, but by the undeniable weight of his actions. His thoughts do not remain trapped inside his head. They flow out through his fingers, changing the physical reality of the province around him. Years passed, and the temple on the ridge grew quiet as Sudoku's strength finally returned to the earth. Rui was no longer an apprentice. He sat upon the woven mat where his master once sat, and travelers from the distant capital began to climb the long stone steps to seek his counsel. They did not come because he held a seal from the Imperial Academy, nor because he owned the largest library in the East. They came because there was an undeniable, razor-sharp clarity in how he assessed a problem. He saw the hidden vulnerabilities in an adversary's position that long-serving generals missed entirely. He connected tactical movements with seasonal agriculture in ways that left the traditional specialists stunned. He worked every problem through to its absolute, unvarnished conclusion, producing strategies that never cracked when the wind changed. He had become exactly what Sudoku had promised: dangerously self-educated. When you bind these four ancient laws into a single life, when you choose Rikai over consumption, Ichigo Naharu over scattered variety, the discipline of the thinking document over passive memory, and the fire of Yissen over safe theory, an extraordinary transformation takes place within your nature. You no longer need the permission of an academy to tell you what is true. You possess the internal forge required to test reality on your own terms. You are entirely unmoved by the titles or seals of men, because you have seen how often a grand robe covers a hollow chest. You carry a deep, unshakable stillness that requires no external applause, because you know exactly what you understand. And you are entirely honest about where your darkness begins. This path is not rapid. It offers no easy comforts, no public recognition, and no medals to show your kin. It is a lonely, slow journey through the quiet hours of the night, turning over the same difficult thoughts while the rest of the province sleeps. But those who choose to walk it eventually build something that no wealth can buy and no academy can bestow. A mind that has been completely transformed by the depth of its own independent thinking. Start tonight. Close your ears to the noise of the crowd. Select one single idea that you have skimmed for months and go to the absolute bottom of it. Comment below the one door you are going to commit your life to opening. Subscribe to the Temple of Depth and Discipline for ancient strategies tested by time. The most important campaign of your life will never happen in a public court. It is happening right now, in the silent daily work of mastering your own mind.